So we're gonna talk about the root causes of injustice in the workplace. That's the title of this video for today. So, have you ever worked in an environment where you felt like fairness was not really practiced, or fairness was not valued, or fairness was not important to that particular workplace or environment, where you keep seeing certain people favored, some employees just are treated differently, and even when you speak up about the unfairness, it seems to make things worse, right? And workplace injustice does not always start off with, like, it's not starting off with an unfair action itself. Most of the time it begins with insecure leadership, abuse of power, poor character in people. People are jealous, people are envious, people have resentment going on. There's a lack of awareness, there's favoritism and disproportionate repercussions for wrongdoings. There's competition without integrity. There's a lack of accountability. That is where injustice is coming from, not just one action, right? And in this video, we're going to look beyond the surface and examine the root causes of injustice at work, and we're going to look at the mindset and the behaviors and the character of different individuals in the workplace and how they create an unfair environment and how it's allowed to thrive and become normalized over time. So these root causes will apply to everyone: managers, supervisor, director, bosses, owners, senior employees, co-workers on your level. Everybody is included. So one of the first root causes of injustice at work is disproportionate repercussions, where the punishment for the wrongdoings, it don't match the crime. It just don't match up. The consequences don't match the seriousness of the situation. That is where you could feel like things are unfair. Wrongdoing should always have its, appropriate consequences. It should match, and there's a lack of balance and equity, or is a lack of fairness going on when it comes to wrongdoings and the consequences, right? You could see like there's justification of wrongdoings depending on who break the rule. There might be justification of that wrongdoing, right? Or management might stay silent just in the face of wrongdoings, or a certain employee could make a small mistake and then you see they get publicly humiliated, or they get suspended, or they're heavily criticized for the small wrongdoing, while somebody else make a serious mistake and there's little consequences, or sometimes there's no consequence at all, right? An employee might make a minor mistake and then they get this formal warning, or they get suspended, as I said before, while others make a similar mistake and then there's no consequences. That is where injustice comes about, where there's disproportionate repercussions. It's not fair. The wrongdoings, the consequences that they get, it just don't match, and somebody make a small error and then you see they're removed from the project, or an employee you might disagree. You might disagree with a manager respectfully, and then you suddenly see that you're excluded from opportunities. You disagree respectfully, and then you see you're excluded, or someone is late and then they get disciplined harshly. But if other people are late, other employees who are late, who are frequently late, they face no consequences. That is where injustice is coming about, right? the punishment, or the consequences, that just don't match the seriousness of the situation, right? And injustice appear through disproportionate repercussions, where certain employees face severe consequences for a minor mistake, while others are given like more grace and or might not be given any consequences at all. So that's one of the root cause of injustice. That's the disproportionate, the punishment not matching the wrongdoings, right? And in addition to that, you can have organizational systems. They might reward the wrong behavior, because sometimes the problem is not just one bad person or bad people. It's that the organization, wherever you're working, the business, it rewards results while it's ignoring how the results were achieved, right? And then there's this lack of accountability. People learn that, okay, there's no consequences for my bad behavior. I could do anything I please as long as I get the results. It don't matter how I get the results. Once I get it, I could do anything I please. Okay. And then injustice start to become like part of the workplace culture, right? People start accepting things just because, oh well, you might hear that's how things are around here, and this leads to complacency, accepting things just because, okay, well, it has been like that after time after time, and we just accept it because we're getting the results that we need. And you eventually start seeing the entire system rewarding and protecting bad behavior just for results. That's where injustice is coming about, right? People know they could mistreat you, they could do whatever, and there's no consequence, right? So the another root cause is favoritism and this personal bias. Sometimes it's blatant favoritism. That's the professional treatment to particular colleagues, right? People having personal relationships between like the people in power and the employees. They have personal relationship going on, and that's where favoritism start to take place. These personal relationships, the influences, the managers and the supervisors, directors, or whoever in charge, they give the opportunities to these people that they favor. They're more lenient, or they might give a promotion, or they respect them more because they have this personal relationship with them going on, right? There's people that are making them feel, they're making them feel good, they're doing favors for them. So instead of giving opportunities or promotion or to people who are actually qualified and they're competent and they're fit for the opportunity, they get their personal feelings involved, and they're giving it to the people that they favor, who they have personal relationship with. And this personal relationship and the feelings that they have towards these employees, it override fairness. That is where you see injustice coming about, right? Because of favoritism and employees who they come to do their work, they come to work, and they don't have personal relationships with their boss. They are not favorites. Unfortunately, these people, they have less access to opportunities. That's why it feels so unfair, and you're experiencing injustice. You would have less access to promotions. You have less respect from them. You may have harsh scrutiny than others because of the personal bias that these leaders have, right? They might pick apart certain employees' work while the others they favor, their work just go without criticism, right? Whether or not it's good work, and everyone would not have the same shot at success or opportunities because of this personal bias, because of favoritism going on. and certain employees will always be questioned. The one who are not favorites, you would always be questioned. You're always monitored. You will be criticized excessively and unfairly, or you're constantly watched for your mistakes, and they ignore the same mistakes of the ones they favor, and that's where you see the injustice coming about. It's not just one unfair action, right? The other way injustice is coming about, the root cause of injustice in the workplace, is that people lack empathy, right? Certain managers, supervisors, directors, bosses, owners, senior employees, they lack empathy, and that is why you see sometimes they give dismissive comments and they're overlooking your concerns because they lack empathy. They undermine you, they ignore your concern. There's also a lack of urgency to you. They fail to put themselves in your shoes, so they lack empathy. They lack understanding, especially when they cannot relate to the situation that you're bringing up. They cannot relate to the concern that you're bringing up. There's a lack of concern about issues that don't affect them directly. They lack empathy. They can't see the situation. They can't put themselves in your shoes, right? They're disregarding basic rights. They're disregarding the freedom of speech, They're not paying attention to you having equal treatment, or you having a right to dignity and respect. You have a right to raise complaints without retaliation, right? They're unconscious to the fact that, or they lack empathy. They don't realize that everybody deserves respect and everybody deserves fair treatment. It's just a lack of empathy. That's where, injustice is coming about. That's why you feel like it's unfair, because people lack empathy. That's one of the root causes of injustice. And another one is there's insecurity within people, or there could be insecure leadership, right? It could be an insecure manager. They may feel threatened. Yes, managers, supervisors, senior employees, directors, bosses, whoever in charge, they could feel threatened by the competence or the confidence or the independence of employees below them, right? And instead of developing them, these maybe senior employees, they may just undermine you, exclude you, or they're trying to make you feel undervalued, to push you out, or just hide opportunities from you, right? To control you. They're insecure within themselves. So instead of thinking that this person is good at what they do, let me help grow them, develop them, let me help them progress, they may think in a different way. When you lack insecurity, you may think like, this person is becoming too influential, They may start to withhold opportunities from you. They could exclude you from important decisions, or they minimize their contributions, or they hide information from you because they're insecure within themselves, right? They may take credit for your work and then they shift the blame, because some people who are insecure, they focus on their self-image, right? Because their self-image depends heavily on being competent. They might not want to admit a mistake because that might feel threatening to them. They may take credit for things that go well, and then they look for somebody else to blame when things go badly, right? These are things people do when they feel insecure, when they focus on their self-image, when they want to show or pretend or look like they're competent, right? They may use control instead of leadership. This is things that people do. People in charge, they do these things when they are insecure within themselves. They have some insecurity, and maybe your confidence, or you being competent, or you being independent, or having good work ethic or whatever, it's triggering them. So then they try to micromanage you, or they excessively criticizing you, or they're trying to hold back information from you, Are they creating unnecessary rules? They start to shift the goalposts and constantly monitoring you, and these become ways of just maintaining a psychological control over you, right? They may deliberately keep you from growing because they're insecure, right? Insecure leadership, people in charge, they lack inner confidence, they lack confidence in themselves. So when they see somebody with good work ethic or they're competent, they start doing weird things, holding you back from growing. And this is one of the most damaging forms, right? Like a leader or a senior employee may recognize that our employee has potential, right? They have good work ethic, they have talents, they have gifts, but they avoid promoting them because they're insecure. They avoid developing them. They hide opportunities from them because they don't want to lose control. They don't want to feel overshadowed. That is where injustice comes from. That is the root cause. That is one of the root causes of injustice, right? So another root cause of injustice is people abuse power, right? Abuse of power is one of the major roots of workplace injustice because it happens when someone uses their authority for purposes that go beyond legitimate leadership. So they're using their power, they're abusing their power, they're using their power to intimidate you, to manipulate you, to punish you. They're using their power to silence you, to exploit you, to exploit employees who have less authority than them, or to put you at a disadvantaged position for whatever personal reasons or feelings they have towards you. Rather than making a legitimate decision based on the situation at hand, they get their feelings involved. They choose ways to humiliate you just because they don't like you for a certain reason. They might be jealous of you, envious of your potential, jealous of your gifts, jealous of your talent, your knowledge, skills, your influence. They could be jealous of. And these personal feelings of whosoever's in charge affects the ones who have less authority, because you might have to face unnecessary consequences for not being liked, or you're triggering someone with your competence or your confidence or your knowledge or your talents, right? And a manager, leader, boss, they may dislike an employee personally, and instead of keeping that feeling separate or dealing with that feeling, keeping it separate from work, what they're gonna do is they're gonna give you fewer opportunities now. Exclude you from different decisions, exclude you from different meetings, give you undesirable assignments, or they're abusing your power by giving you some impossible tasks or impossible goal that they want you to reach, or they put you on some improvement plan to punish you, not because you need it, or they criticize you more harshly than others. They're micromanaging you, or they keep looking for mistakes so they can use them against you because there's something about you that they don't like. There's something about you that they're jealous of or they envy, and they're abusing their power. And the injustice occurs because the person's treatment, the treatment you're getting, is no longer based on your actual work. You don't need a improvement plan, but it's based on the feelings that your boss is having against you, and maybe other people are bad talking you with people in power, and now there's this abuse of power, right? I believe healthy leaders, they use their authority to protect, and they use their authority to develop other employees, and they keep their feelings separate. Whether or not they feel jealous, they deal with whatever is triggering them, right? So with abusive power at hand in a workplace, it can cause people to punish you for speaking out, for speaking the truth, right? An employee notices something wrong or something is unfair and they report it, and instead of addressing the problem, the leader may become like annoyed with you, or they're upset that you expose it, and then you're getting like, you're feeling that you're being treated unfair or there's injustice, because after you report a wrongdoing, you notice that now they're isolating you, or there's retaliation or some humiliation you're experiencing now, right? Now you become a target just because you notice something unfair, or you see there's an issue, or you're concerned about some wrongdoing. You see injustice and you speak out, and then now they're monitoring you more. Now you have less opportunities. Now you're excluded now from different opportunities. You're being labeled as the unreasonable one, the difficult one. You're the troublemaker now, because you talk out about unfairness or injustice, or you bring up an issue that you keep seeing happening. You bring up a problem that you keep seeing happening and you want to resolve, and no, the leader is not resolving the original problem. They're just punishing the person who brought the problem to light. That's where injustice comes from, right? So the real problem here is having people with power who don't have the proper character. People are in power who don't have integrity. People who are in power who they lack values, they lack morals and principles, and they lack self-awareness and accountability to be in that powerful position, right? To be responsible. So the injustice will keep going on and on and on, happening over and over again, right? And they are abusing this power mainly because of insecurities, and they feel entitled that everybody should do what they say, or they have narcissistic traits, or they have controlling behavior just because they're in power. They're abusing their power, and that's why, there's favoritism going on, there's personal relationships, and their feelings are just getting in the way of their work decisions, right? So another root cause of injustice is poor character. Poor character keeps showing up in everywhere, in romantic relationships, family, work, friendships. There's a lot of people walking around with poor character, and a person's position, as I mentioned before in the video I recently did called Hard Truths About Adulthood I Had to Learn Alone. You could check that out. I realized that not because a person is in a high position means that they are automatically ethical, that they automatically have values and principles and morals, that they have integrity, right? Leaders, managers, supervisors, bosses, senior employees, people in charge, owners, whoever it is, they are full of jealousy. Most of them are full of envy, dishonest, selfish. They have resentment towards you for whatever reason, and they feel entitled. And these behaviors can show up at work, as what I'm telling you, and they're showing up everywhere else, and they're showing up at work. And dishonesty creates unfairness. So a person with poor character, whether or not they're a boss or they're just an employee, they're going to lie. They're going to manipulate information because of the poor character that they have. They're going to take credit for your work. They're going to hide their own mistakes as a boss, a leader. This can cause honest employees to suffer consequences for something that they didn't do, right? Because people have poor character and they are focused on their self-image, and they're selfish, right? And selfishness creates favoritism. Someone who is primarily concerned with their own interests, they may give opportunities to their friends at work, or people who benefit them personally at work rather than who actually deserve the opportunity or who is fit for the promotion, right? And in this video, I'm not saying that every unpleasant workplace experience is necessarily injustice. I'm not saying every unpleasant experience in the workplace is injustice. Sometimes we have normal disagreement, which is normal. I'm not saying that you never have conflict, Sometimes there's a legitimate performance issue. Sometimes there's just management is just making decisions that we simply don't like. Can't agree with everything, and that's normal. And I'm not telling you to become a favorite now to try to get by or manipulate people to get ahead. No, that's not what I'm saying. I would never advise that, because I believe in having a good character and having integrity, and I would never advise people to try to become a favorite to get ahead and manipulate your boss and be fake and create relationships just for your own self-interest. This is just insights on the topic of injustice at work, right? So as I was talking about poor character, there's a lack of integrity, right? And some leaders, they expect employees to follow the rules. They expect you to follow the procedures of the organization, of the company, institution, or wherever, and they don't protect you. They want you to follow the rules and do all the procedures correctly, and they genuinely don't care about you. They're dishonest. They lack transparency. They allow disrespectful behavior of other employees to go on and on and on. Bullying goes on unchecked. There's gossiping. There's smear campaigns going on every day. There's stealing. They're manipulating. There's unfair advantage going on. But you expect everybody to follow the rules and follow all the procedures. And in addition to that, people in charge are treating certain employees like their work don't matter and that they're not valued because you don't make them feel a certain way, or you're not friends with them, or you're not trying to be friends with them, or you're not performing this loyal fake relationship with them. You're not giving them the attention that they need. You're not making them look good, or you're not making them feel good, right? So unfortunately, you may feel like your work don't matter, right? And then when you have poor character, envy take charge, right? Envy turns into sabotage, and a person with poor character may have difficulty celebrating other people's success because you're so envious and you're so jealous, and instead of improving themselves, they may try to diminish the success of the employee, whether it's a boss or employee on your level, anybody. They're gonna try to diminish you by gossiping about you, excluding you, criticizing you because they're jealous and they cannot celebrate somebody else's success because they feel threatened by your success. And then whoever it is that's withholding opportunities from you, or your manager could withhold opportunities from you because they envy you, or people on your level, they have fake concern about your work, acting like they're concerned about your work, trying to make you look like you're incompetent or there's something wrong with your work, and there's nothing. They're fake concern, trying to make you look bad. This is envy. This is a lack of character development. This is having a lack of integrity and not working on yourself, and cruelty start to become normalized, right? A person who lacks empathy may not care about the decisions that they make, right? So a person who lacks empathy, they may not care about the decisions that they're making and how it affects others. They may not care that they're humiliating you, right? As long as they're getting what they want and they get the results they need, they do not care how stressful it is for you or how damaging it is for you, the cruelty that you're experiencing. They may not care whether the cruelty or the humiliation is coming from somebody in charge or somebody on your level. People lack empathy, right? So as long as they're getting the results they need, they don't care how stressful it is or if it's damaging you psychologically, right? Another root cause of injustice at work is competition without integrity. Competing at all costs, when people become more concerned about getting ahead than doing the right thing. So instead of being a team, you look at other co-workers as threats, right? There's a lack of character in most people, and they are focused on getting ahead at all costs, and that is where you see injustice coming about, right? They are prioritizing their self-interest over integrity and doing the right thing. They start stepping on people's neck. That is why you feel so unfair. That is why you're experiencing so much injustice, because there's unnecessary competition and people lack integrity. Competition without integrity. So they're doing many underhand things, having a lot of sneaky behavior. They're scheming, plotting, planning against you, grouping up to steal from you. And it's pure hogwash behavior. It's unnecessary competition, and that is how unfairness starts, and that is how injustice is breeding in the workplace, right? People are competing without integrity, competing unnecessarily, right? And there's also the next way injustice happens, or the root cause of injustice is not just one isolated unfair action, is that there's a fair-based workplace culture going on. And I see this everywhere I go. Everywhere I've walked, there are people in fear. People are always afraid to speak up. Almost everybody could have like 20-something, 30-something people walking there, and every one of them could be afraid of speaking up. Sometimes nobody will speak up. If there's 40 people there, nobody will speak up. Hardly anybody would report a problem or challenge unfair treatment, challenge the injustice that they're experiencing. And it continues because everybody stays silent. Nobody is challenging the unfair treatment. And then as weeks pass, months pass, and years pass, injustice then becomes normal because everybody see what's happening and nobody does anything, including managers, supervisors, bosses, owners, senior employees don't do anything. They've been there for such a long time. They see injustice, nobody is seeing anything. And employees are always afraid to challenge injustice, and this is very annoying to me. I really hate being around people who lack, like they don't have a backbone. They're always fearful, and when they have a problem, they talk among themselves and they don't talk to the head, right? It's really disheartening to be around people who are fearful and who lack backbone and who are afraid every day and just take injustice and unfair advantage every single day for days, for weeks, for months, for years, and not say anything. Like, I don't like to be around weak-minded people, and that's like everywhere I walk, there's a lot of weak-minded people who take injustice and just not say anything. So it becomes the culture of not saying anything, and that's how the injustice keep continuing over and over again for years, right? And another root cause of injustice in the workplace is just, and this is a big one, jealousy, envy, resentment towards whoever they're jealous of, right? Someone may resent a coworker because they are competent. They have confidence in themselves. They have freedom of approval. They don't walk around trying to make people like them or trying to get praise. They're not desperate for recognition, you know. Envy and jealous because you have a peace of mind. Envy, they jealous you because you have genuine relationships that you're not performing in. You have relationships with people that you actually like and care about, and you're not in a relationship with them to gain anything. And they're jealous of your genuine relationship and your friendships. They're jealous of the opportunities that you might get. They become jealous of the recognition you get, and then they start to behave unfairly towards you. That's how injustice begins, because of jealousy and envy and resentment towards you, because you have intangible qualities. And I talked about intangible qualities before in my last video. The video before this, I talked about intangible qualities that trigger envy and that trigger jealousy. Even when they have less than you, they're still jealous of you, still competing with you. And that is one of the root causes of injustice and unfairness, because envy can arise when someone sees another employee possessing something that they don't have, especially its intangible qualities, right? Maybe you get recognition from management, maybe you have self-confidence. They're jealous of that. People are jealous and they're envious of your intelligence, your knowledge, wisdom that you have. People are jealous and they envy your talents and your gifts that God gave you, your natural charisma that you have. You respect others, you respect yourself, they're jealous of that. Envy you because you have strong work performance, you have good work ethic. You could work independently by yourself. You don't need a group every day to perform. You're popular, you get attention, you have opportunities coming towards you, whatever they're jealous of. And then the problem isn't just jealousy and envy. No, this jealousy and this envy and this resentment they have towards you, it becomes destructive when they start to act unfairly towards you, want to sabotage you, right? So for example, instead of thinking, maybe you're in charge, instead of thinking, I want to improve myself. Yeah, this coworker inspired me to be better. No, they're not gonna think that. They're gonna think like, why are you getting all this attention? Why people respect you? Why you have so much influence? Where you get that charisma from? And it's natural charisma from God, right? And then that could lead to different behaviors, whether or not whoever is jealous of you, manager, supervisor, senior employee, co-worker on your level, anybody, this jealousy and this envy, what it leads to? Exclusion. That's how things start to feel unfair. It leads to undermining you. It leads to withholding information from you. It leads to taking credit for your work, trying to make you look. They're jealous, so they're trying to make you look like you're not competent, and they have this fake concern about your work, and nothing's wrong with your work. You might actually be more intelligent than them, knowledgeable than them, have more skills than them. They should be learning from you, but they're concerned about your work. Fake concern. That's where you see unfair advantage coming in, withholding opportunities from you because you're competent and you're influential. They prevent you from developing your skills. That is where the injustice is coming from, right? The jealousy, the envy, and the resentment they have towards you, especially if you have good work ethic. And what if it's a boss that envy you? When a boss envy you or have resentment towards you, when it's coming from somebody of authority, the consequences can be much greater, Then there's a bigger problem here, right? I mean, if a co-worker on my level envy me, gossip about me, they're on your level, they envy you, they gossip about you, they're doing smear campaign, they're bullying you, trying to break you down mentally, they're monitoring you. All of these things, they're not as important, and they might not affect you as much, or they might not affect me as much, because I have inner confidence, I know my values, I have resilience, I have grit, you have strong mind, right? It won't really affect you that much. I'm not saying that, it's not affecting you at all, but it is not as important because you have other goals and you have a purpose why you come to work besides the paycheck, right? But when this envy or this jealousy or this resentment is coming from a supervisor or assistant manager or some senior employee, that could potentially affect your opportunities, right? Then they could start to evaluate you unfairly. Now that's a bigger fish to fry. When somebody is in charge, they envy you and they're jealous of you, they can evaluate you unfairly. They could create impossible assignments for you or goals for you to keep you back from progressing. They can actually create career stagnation. They can affect your progression at work. They can prevent you from developing your skills and talent. They can block you from reaching your potential, and that's a bigger fish to fry, and that's where envy can really turn into workplace injustice, right? So for example, a manager may recognize that an employee, you're highly capable, but they feel threatened that you have confidence. They feel threatened that you have influence, you have intelligence, and instead of promoting you, developing you, helping you improve your skills, making you develop, helping you progress, they're going to keep you out of important projects now, right? They're gonna prevent you from having training opportunities, prevent you from developing, right? That's why it's a bigger fish to fry now when somebody in charge is envious of you, jealous of you, have resentment towards you because of whatever they're triggered about you. So they're gonna give opportunities to the less qualified. Most of the time, the less qualified are their favorites. Some people, okay, you're human, you have favorites, you can't help it, but most of the time, everywhere I walk, the favorites is always somebody who's lack character development. They don't have integrity. They lack communication skills. They're not as competent. They need the improvement plan, right? But when jealousy and envy take a hold of you, especially if you're in charge, you're deliberately gonna overlook employees who deserve that promotion. They deserve to go to that program. They deserve training. They deserve opportunities to move ahead, right? But then with the jealousy and the envy that is not controlled and not worked on, you prevent them from gaining visibility. You interpret their confidence as arrogance. You hold a high standard that others are not held to, minimize their accomplishments, trying to break them down and make them feel bad, right? Deliberately withholding recognition and withholding praise, deliberately withholding recognition and praise, marginalizing you, make you feel like you're less important, you're less valued here, you're less included, you're less included than other employees because of jealousy, envy, resentment towards you, right? It's a bigger fish to fry when somebody in charge is envy you, jealous of you, and they have more than you, right? That's why I talk about intangible qualities. You don't have the status, you don't have the paycheck that they have, you don't have the possessions that they have, you're not married, you don't have this house, you don't have this car, you don't have this jewelry, you don't have this whatever people think success is about. You don't have opportunities to go to these luxurious events, but they're still jealous of you, they still envy you, They still have resentment towards you because of the intangible qualities that I talked about. So that is why they're constantly overlooking you, ignoring your contributions, making you feel like, you're outside of the team. That is why there's a bigger fish to fry here now. The issue is not just envy now. The issue is not just a little jealousy and you feel a little resentment. The issue, this is external injustice happening. And one of the most interesting things about workplace envy and jealousy is that it's not always for material possessions. Most of the time, it's not material possessions they're envious about. Envy and jealousy, most of the time, especially people who have more than you, it's the envy, the self-confidence. I talked about this in my last video. The envy, the peace of mind you have, the authenticity you have, the envy, and they're jealous of your intelligence, your grit, the resilience you have to show up no matter what, the discipline you have. Envy and jealous of competence, have resentment because you respect yourself. They envy who you are, not what you have. That's why they have more than you and they're still comparing themselves to you. And all of this leads to injustice, especially when it's coming from somebody higher than you, have more authority than you, is personally in charge of you. And when people cannot compete with those intangible qualities, those values, those principles, they try to undermine you and sabotage the person who possesses them, right? So the jealousy and envy now, it moves from internal emotions that you have and it's external injustice that you're experiencing, right? And the last root cause of injustice at work is people lack self-awareness, right? Some people genuinely, they don't realize how their behavior affects others. They don't care, they don't know, they're not aware of it. So they may see their favoritism, their defensiveness, or their micromanaging you, or their hostility as just completely justified because, well, they're in charge or they're in a high position and all of this is justified, right? And the manager might genuinely believe that they're treating everyone equally, they care about everyone, while consistently giving certain employees more opportunities and more grace and more leniency and promotions and opportunities I mentioned before. Right? They might actually lack self-awareness. They're just carrying on every day by day. They favor people who they personally like. They favor people who agree with them. Favor people who do favors for them. They're not focused on work. They're not focused on who's competent, who's qualified, who's fit for the position, who should have development, who should have the opportunity to make things better. They focus on who befriend them or who hang out with them or who make them feel good, who make them look good professionally. They favor the one who's sucking up to them. They favor the one who's performing, they're performing a relationship, they're performing loyalty to you. And you lack self-awareness. Some people might actually be naive and they're just not aware and they get fooled into involving themselves in this fake relationship that they have at work. People are seeking validation through proximity to power. They're just performing a relationship. It's not genuine. Like as a boss, some people, as a leader, manager, senior employee, whoever you are, director, supervisor, whoever you are, there are people, they're just seeking validation through proximity to you. They're performing a relationship. It's not genuine, right? And how could you not see this? And you don't evaluate your own bias and you don't see the unfairness that you're creating. Some people are actually naive, they're not aware, or they're blocking it out from their mind, or they're not mentally strong enough. That could be an issue where you want to be friends so much You want to have good relationships so much. You don't want to look harsh, and you don't want to look like a bad person. You want to be lenient and have friends and be liked so much that you can't do your job properly as a leader. And the injustice can happen, like, without people admitting that they're being unfair. They're unconscious. They don't know that they're being unfair. Right? They lack awareness of what's going on. And some co-workers don't see how their behaviors affect people, right? So different from managers, people maybe on your level now, they don't see how their behavior affect people. Some people might constantly interrupt you. They're criticizing you in public. People in charge might dismiss your ideas and they don't think it's anything. They dismiss your concerns. They're not seeing what they're doing wrong or what they're not taking responsibility for. People are what I'm trying to say is that people are walking around this, they lack self-awareness. And it don't matter whoever it is, co-workers lack basic manners and courtesy. See it a lot, especially women. They are ill-mannered, very disrespectful and rude, and obnoxious and inconsiderate. They lack development in themselves. They don't look at themselves and they don't see how uncivilized they are. They don't realize they lack social skills. They lack social etiquette. It's pure hogwash behavior. It's like high school with teenagers who lack a good upbringing, but they're in an adult body, but they're still stuck in high school type behavior. A lot of people, especially women, very unrefined and tactless. They're not polished, very intrusive, always seeking attention, loud, totally uncivilized, and just lacking social skills, communication skills, And when you find it, okay, you complain this is not normal. Why would you want to go to work every day and you have to deal with somebody rude and obnoxious? Every day you're rude, every day you're disrespectful, every day you have a lack of social skills. And when you finally complain about it, people say, including manager, employee, whoever in charge, oh, you're too sensitive. You complain about the rudeness, the disrespectful behavior, the obnoxious, uncivilized behavior, the what do you call it? This ill manner, just lack basic manners as a human. They will tell you it's not that serious. Don't take things too personally. Why is it okay to come to work to deal with somebody rude every day? It's not that serious. You focus on the wrong things. Why do I have to deal with rude, obnoxious, disrespectful behavior, especially from women, every single day? That's just who they are. That's just who they are. Really, you must accept ill-mannered, uncivilized behavior every single day. Are you crazy? That's just who they are. That's really unfortunate if that's just who they are. You should not accept rude, disrespectful behavior every single day, right? So they focus on your reaction to the disrespect. They focus on you reacting to the injustice instead of examining the hurtful behavior, the disrespectful behavior, instead of examining the injustice. They focus on your reaction, telling you that's how they are. And an unaware leader, they would ask, why are these people so difficult? Right? They wouldn't ask, If you're aware, you're self-aware, you're trying to be self-aware, you might ask, why are multiple people experiencing me this way, whether you're a leader or not? You could just be an employee, you're very disrespectful, you're rude. People are complaining that you're obnoxious and you're rude and you're ill-mannered, and you're not aware. So if you are self-aware, you would ask, well, why everybody keeps saying I'm rude and I'm disrespectful and I don't have communication skills? They're not gonna think that, because they lack self-awareness, right? And they can't take accountability, don't accept how their actions could affect people, right? They're not asking themselves, was I unfair? Was that fair? Whoever you are, whatever position or status you have, did I treat that person unfairly? Did I treat that person differently? Not asking that, because you lack self-awareness. Could my personal feelings be involved in my decision? Am I treating people unfairly? Did I communicate properly? Nobody is asking that. Lack self-awareness. Did I contribute to this mess? No, people just want to protect their self-image, right? And when someone in authority constantly protects their ego, protect their self-image, instead of examining themselves and holding other co-workers accountable for their actions, when they're not doing that, injustice keep being repetitive over and over again, right? So injustice at work is not about one isolated wrongdoing or one isolated incident. It's what happens when personal flaws and weaknesses have not been worked on in people, right? It also happens when there's a lack of integrity in people, there's a lack of character development across the board, unchecked power. Nobody's keeping anybody accountable, right? Nobody's challenging anybody. People are staying silent. Nobody is correcting or holding them accountable for their behaviors, whether employees or managers. Insecurity within themselves, within leadership, start to become control. Jealousy and envy within people, they start to sabotage you. That's where the injustice come in. Poor character, you're gonna be dishonest, do underhand things, steal, plot, plan, scam. You lack self-awareness, you just continue damaging people and you don't even know what's going on, what you're doing, right? And managers, supervisors, leaders, senior employees, bosses, directors, owners, whoever in charge, they are the one who most of the time they create this injustice and they allow injustice to continue and go on within other employees, right? So a healthy workplace isn't defined by absence of conflict. Of course you're gonna have conflict, gonna have disagreements, they're gonna be misunderstandings. I'm not saying you're gonna have a perfect healthy workplace environment. There's gonna be conflict, but what I'm saying is that people need to take fairness seriously. People need to be accountable, and the dignity and the sanity of a person should be taken seriously. A person's humility, their self-respect, their mental health, their emotional well-being should be respected, should be protected, and you should never treat someone in a way that strips them from their dignity and deliberately trying to damage their emotional well-being. And this includes humiliation at work, harassment, boss intimidating you, other employees, co-workers constantly disrespecting you, rude every day. There's manipulation going on, nobody's checking it, and co-workers are just creating an environment where it's just psychologically unsafe, walking on eggshells every day, dealing with disrespect every day, lack of communication skills, rude, disrespectful, uncivilized, all of these things. People are unaware. Basically, people lack development within themselves, and that is where injustice comes about. I know this was a long video, but thanks for watching. You could hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. So that's where injustice comes from. That's the root causes of injustice and unfairness at work, and I'll see you in the next video.